Hey guys, Dustin Nguyen.
Hey, this is Scott Snyder.
This is Paul Dini.
And you're listening to Bat Force Radio.
And you're listening to Bat Force Radio.
You're listening to Bat Force Radio.
This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman, and you're listening to Bat Force Radio, so stay tuned.
Welcome back to Bat Force Radio, everybody. Absolutely special treat. Happy holidays, happy Halloween. We're going to get right into it. Coming over from Canada, we got Robin Cross.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Over in New York, fresh off of New York Comic-Con, we got the Dunk Knight himself.
What up?
Off a fresh Dodgers win, I am Bat Force Tom over in California.
You got it.
And yeah, I screwed it up as always. Kelley, I wonder how many times you've been on and how many times I've screwed up the intro. Probably 100% of the time. Bat 1,000.
I can't remember when you got it right.
So. You're
50% of the time, you fucked it up every time.
Never.
Right.
Consistency. That's why I don't get nervous for many of these, but whenever you're on, it's like
I don't understand. Why would you be nervous of that? You have many.
It's like Santa's here during the best season ever. Like
yeah, I guess
coming to bring us
like many more of these, and I'm gonna feel like like we can just come over to your house. We'll have a key. We can come in. It'll go over fine.
There you go. It's a big enough house. We could do it.
Next year on Bat Force Radio's Halloween special, we'll be at Kelly Jones's place.
There you be.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't even know whether it's Halloween or not here because it's always like that.
There it is.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
There it is. So as you can see, special guest for the seventh annual is insane to say. 7th annual Halloween Spooktacular. This is not something to throw around lightly. The literal living legend, Mr. Kelley Jones, is with us today. And
thank you, Kelley.
Thank you.
If you guys listen to our show, Kelley Jones is no stranger. Just absolutely phenomenal, a force to be reckoned with, one of our favorites. And I just can't believe, guys, seven Halloweens in a row. Crazy, right?
Yeah, that is crazy. That's like what 49 dog years, I guess. So
oh man, good math.
Good.
And I can't remember back more than 7 Halloweens. So as far as my brain remembers, you've been here for every Halloween of my life.
There you go. I like that. I actually enjoy the fact that you've made it synonymous with Halloween now. That's good.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
It also only makes sense.
Right.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
Well, I think the best part of my career was being linked to that. I mean, I had always wanted to be doing that kind of material, and it was just very hard to get. And just good fortune and good luck, right place, right time. And I desperately, I know a lot of people, writers, artists don't want to be stereotyped. I absolutely did, because that's the only stuff I wanted to be asked to do, was that kind of material. I figured there weren't that many people doing it then. So everyone could go find the mainstream superhero kind of thing. I wanted to work in that, but doing what I do and just see what would happen. But I have been very fortunate that there were enough people who are twisted. So that was good.
Yeah. This is a very special one because for the first time we are celebrating the physical release of your Kickstarter campaign of Dracula. And look at this happy customer right here.
Yes.
With his hard copy in his hand.
Yep.
And I think everyone who pledged should have their copy at this point.
I believe everybody was, fulfillment was fairly smooth and happened within a few weeks of the release of the book. Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
Which came in early, which was the trick is to be no less than halfway done when you put something up, if you're going to offer it. Yeah. And that way you can guarantee it will be out. And then if you have the good fortune of the printers and the shipping all coming together, you will, unless there's a huge, you'll come in before it's due. And that's what happened for us. Was it was about 2 months before it was we were told it would be here, it got here, and they just went right to fulfillment.
That's phenomenal. And I think there's a couple of covers. This one is this is the Kelley Jones cover.
Yeah.
And then there's also a Matt Wagner cover.
Yep.
And then there's an artist. How would you describe this one? The artist edition?
I get it's just black and white.
Lovely.
But and it's one of those things where when they're putting it together, I don't really think in terms like that. I'm still, just whatever the book is. So they would come at you with a lot of stuff. And initially, they wanted to do like they want to do a black and white edition. And that I think that's fine, but I would like to get I in my head, since we were planning on 4 of them, I'd like to have 2 volumes for each black and white one, and make it, see what how you can make it. Right now we're talking to Bob Chapman, who did my gallery edition for Batman and Deadman. And I'm very happy that he's interested in doing that with this, because it looks really good in black and white, I think.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. And then before I forget, my goodness, right now, as this episode airs, if you have not been able to be on the Kickstarter campaign for book 1, go to your local comic shop, go to a bookstore, because I want to say the softcover edition is going to be out October 22nd.
Yep. And it's a beautiful Dark Horse. While we were doing this, Dark Horse was handling a lot of the technical stuff because Matt knew them, and rather than find some printer we didn't know, we just figured, well, we'll pay them and they can print it for us and do all the logisticals. And while in the middle of that, they came to us and said, hey, if it's cool, we would like to handle a trade of this. And because we already have everything done, and that was a good idea, because the only thing with the Kickstarter is they don't really get into the shops. So I'm very much about shops getting the books, whatever they are, and especially eccentric stuff like this. That's kind of the shops I remember when I was a kid, where you have all the stuff coming out from the main companies, and then all this out of left field kind of thing. So when they offered that, I thought that's terrific. And they, it's one of those things where you're just happy someone can walk in a store and just thumb through it and go, oh my God, ooh, what is this? Or I love it, but just have the chance to look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's, I reread it last night, and just to get the juices flowing.
Yeah.
And it is just, this stuff is just stunning. This is such a stunning book that you guys have put together.
Thank you.
And
I think a lot of it is you got a great story. It draws itself.
It does feel like it just flows. The beats mixed with like the imagery and artwork, it was just boom, boom, boom. It's perfectly matched, I think, together.
Well, I think what you get with Matt Wagner is he is a absolutely devoted comic book guy on how you make a comic. He's not trying to do a pitch for a Netflix series. He's not trying to do a screenplay. He's not trying to be, he stays within the wonderful realm of comic bookness, if that's a word. And so he writes scenes, and it goes scene to scene to scene, and each scene builds to the next scene. And there's an arc to the character. And this is all, you just don't see that very much anymore, where each scene is interesting. You don't have to wait to the end to get the point. It builds upon itself. But just as a reader, it's totally entertaining. And let me tell you, when I read the script, I knew when I spoke to him, he told me, hey, this is what I kind of want to do. And the overall idea was fabulous, because it's all in canon with Dracula, with Stoker's Dracula. But he just exploited the stuff that was just briefly mentioned. That's there. It's all there. And when he told me that, and I thought, man, that's great. When I got the script, it was like perfect. There were so many nuggets of just absolutely compelling stuff that, I mean, just reading it in a script form, I knew. A lot of times you get stuff and you say, well, I'll fix it when I get there, or we'll work on it, or there's something there. This was one I knew when I read it. This is a home run.
Yeah. I mean, and paired with your artwork, I was reading part of you know, at the back, there's some extras, and flipping through some of the extras, you could see some of the outline of the script, and then his notes to you. And then one of the best things is, I can't remember if it was in the intro or in the script or where he mentions it, but he was like, I'm working with Kelley Jones. The best thing to do is just don't tell him what to do. Just say what you want to look at. I want to see this. And in that outline, he puts big fucking dragon. Yeah. And then he puts big fucking dragon, not Smaug. So just, you know, no gold or whatever it was, no gold, no treasure, just big fucking dragon. And then you literally drew that perfectly.
Well, thank you. He's a outstanding artist in his own right. So you do wonder, well, you know, here he is with his writer's hat on, but you know, how would he think of this, or how would he do it? And a lot of people, that's difficult for them. But for me, I knew that Matt was asking for me to just do whatever it is, come up with, you know, I think it's the least amount of pre-design I've ever done. I drew a few shots of Dracula, of kind of young and old, and, you know, and whatnot. And then, but I told him, I said, I really don't do that because, or I don't like to do it because then I feel like I'm if I have a better idea later, I'm stuck with it. And it's not an organic process. And he says, don't worry about it. Go just do what you want. And so a lot of it is really influenced by being free. I mean, early in my career, when I came over to DC, that element was there as well. When I would do Dead Man or Red Rain or something, they would just leave you alone. And you turn in stuff, you know, in those days I would turn in stuff every few months. I just just keep working and then send a big package off. And in that kind of isolation, you're free. And that's kind of what happened here. He and I had talked about doing this. He sent me the script, and then from when I started to when it came out was probably about close to 2 years, because I was still under my obligations to other projects I was working on. So I'd have to split time. And the whole time it was very frustrating because I would really be enjoying this because there's no one but Matt to deal with. And I knew I was getting the kind of story that I would want to read, and the kind of story that you feel you want to always kind of make a comic book that when you move and you get rid of a lot of stuff, there's that pile of stuff you keep with you. And that's the kind, I wanted it in that collection of books where you would reread it and it would grow. It would be greater than the sum of Matt and me. It was just a really good story. Or if you're into Dracula or horror, yes, but just as a story, it works. Just as it's one of those things where good is good, and he gave me that, and he still continues to give me that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy to hear timeline, because last year we were talking to you, and I think at that time we had just gotten like the preview pages, and there was teasing, and the Kickstarter was, I think, it just gone live.
Yeah.
Fast forward 1 calendar year later, the book is in people's hands, and now book 2, that Kickstarter is live currently.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's again, when he said he wanted to do 4 of these and tell this kind of epic story, the only thing I said to him was, well, that's a big commitment, not in time or anything, but to the reader, because that's 4 books and you got to read. And he says, no. He says, each book is standalone. If you just read that book, it tells the story. He says the second one will build upon it, but if you never read it, you'd know it. You'd know the story's fine. If you read the first one and then read the second one, it gets bigger. And in that regard, he's done a really good job. The second one, when I got the script for the second one, and he told me, all he said was, I said, well, what will the second one be? And he says, well, it'll be The Brides. And I went, that's fabulous. Mm-hmm. And he wanted to say, how did he choose them? Who were they before? What is life like for them and with them? And that's just part of it, because then he has a whole other thing going on about how his influence and impact on the locality happen, and what it is. He's discovering what it is to be what he is, because all the things we know, we're seeing how they happened, and it is incredibly fascinating. On top of it, it's gory and wonderful and all the things you want in these kind of stories. But it's comic book style, and that's what I like. And that's a positive. It's eccentric and totally. If you read it, you know Matt wrote it. It's one of those things. And obviously, looking at me, you can see I'm having a blast. But
yeah,
but what Matt does is he brings no modernity. He doesn't bring let's make a point. It's here it is. Look at it. This is what went down. He's a very, there's no bias in what he does. It's just, there's no, the way we think and, oh my God, or nothing. These are people from 1472. And that's as interesting as the supernatural stuff.
Yeah. I want to really hammer back onto how well you, Matt, everyone involved executed this, because like we said, a year ago, we were talking about the funding for the first book. Here it is. We've already read the book, and you're already working, like the second book's campaign is already. A lot of these crowdfunded comics, you end up seeing them get delayed for a year before they get into people's hands. So you guys absolutely killed it.
I find that I can't speak for other people. I don't understand that. But then I don't understand being late with deadlines, or I don't understand that you don't have solid monthly comics the way you knew, because people can only do 2 or 3, and then they got to bring another guy in, and that, you know what I mean? It's like there's a real fundamental quality to producing a lot, because organic things happen. Matt and I will talk, and even though he's written the script, things will change because he'll see something, or I'll ask him something, and then we'll go, oh, we can add here or there. And that comes from the process of production, just simply producing. On the other hand, I'm absolutely fan first. So if someone tells me they're going to do a 120-page graphic novel, I'll wait a year, because I know it's going to take time for that. But I don't want to wait 2 years, and I don't want to wait 3 years. You know what I mean? It's like, I can keep going with that. And that's the goal, is once a year, next year at this time, we'll be talking about the one I'm working on now, which is over halfway finished, and preparing and into the third. And that's kind of the pleasure of doing these things too. I physically want to see them in hands, and I think you want to share those things. So I mean, we can get into a whole other discussion of the blue collar nature of producing comic books, and good comic books, not just get it done comic books, as opposed to taking forever to do just a small amount of work. And then when you take forever, other things will come in and delay you. Now, it's just invariably that's going to happen. So when you take on the responsibility of doing a crowdfunding, you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know what the orders are going to be. You don't know. But that doesn't matter, because that's the same in regular mainstream publishing. My only issue was just I wanted it out in stores, and luckily it fell on our lap that Dark Horse would be able to do it. We were trying to figure out something separate, and that becomes fairly problematic. But I don't like waiting. I want to see stuff I like, and I tend to lose patience or lose interest, and I didn't want to do that. I mean, love it or hate it, it's on time, you know.
It looks phenomenal, and I was trying to look for images. Like there's the preview images for the first issue, is preview images for the second issue. I don't want to say issue. I guess volume is a better way of saying that. And because it is a Kickstarter book, and it's not, you know, traditionally kind of released the way it is, it's very hard to find images of it that aren't preview pages. But there's one interior that is, in my opinion, worth the purchase alone, and that's in the first volume when they're showing Satan's, I guess it's his library or his study.
Yes.
They've been given access to.
Yeah.
And so you're looking at, what does Satan's library or what does Satan's, you know, study look like? Yeah. And it's just, I remember opening that and looking at it, and I'm going to be on this page for a while.
Yeah.
Because I literally went from left to right, up and down every like inch of that, you know, just checking and looking at it. And this is like, oh, this is what I'm here for.
Yeah, and it's fun to do that, because Matt just said he takes them to the place where they're to learn sorcery, to learn those dark arts and whatnot. And he doesn't really say. He just says it's a pretty imposing place, is how he put it. And and that and it has to be made obviously for his students. So or who he chooses to go, as you see. Yeah. And that in and of itself was really one of those exciting challenges where I don't really want a lot of description that will hamstring you, but just saying, you know, all he has to say is it's where Satan takes you to learn these things. And that should do it. That should do it.
Yeah.
But Matt's very good at controlling the drama of something, but not controlling the artist on how to convey that. Like I said, that's a great thing, because that's kind of where you come. You've seen him go from the warlord to this guy wandering, then to that, and as I said, each thing builds. So when you get there, for me, when I got to that scene, I went, God, where is this going to go now? You know, where does this go from here? And it just gets better. And it is one of those things where when you're given the opportunity, and Matt did a good thing for me, he'll do things where he'll say, yeah, I'd kind of like to see how he would do that. I'm not going to tell him how to do that, but just see how he'll do that. And those are exciting days.
Yeah. When you get that part of the script, and it says, all right, Satan's study or Satan's, you know, library, where the hell in your brain do you like start to formulate that idea and then pull that and put it onto paper? Like, where does that come from? Are you watching certain things? Are you
I think what happens is it's, you know, the cultivation of everything just not just stuff you're into, but things you've seen in life. And to me, it's more, well, there should be there should be obviously the old tomes, but then there should be other things there, all this other ephemera that would be part of someone learning these kind of Faustian things, these all this arcane research, and it builds and builds and builds. And I remember thinking when I got it, I don't want to get into just a perspective shot. I just want to layer this. So it's like you're in a very claustrophobic place, but it's immense. And it's like, what's behind, there's a jar with all kinds of odd things in it, sitting on a bunch of books next to,
a severed head,
all that stuff. But it's a place of ultimately of learning. And I think one of the things Matt did that was terrific was you got to do the work in Satan's school for necromancy. You have to do the physical work. You have to do your studies. I mean, it was great. And again, something Stoker mentioned at the very beginning was Dracula just wasn't bit by somebody and became a vampire. You know, who cares about that? What's good is, and Stoker knew that. And Stoker says, no, in order to try to defeat the Turks, he didn't have enough men. He didn't have enough material. He had no allies, no support. So he had known of this legend, and he went to see if he could find it and find this place where Satan would imbue you with powers if you could pass his college. And and it's there. It's only in like 2 sentences in the book. But it's something one of Matt's things is he'll catch it. And where a lot of us just skip over and go, that stuck in his head. And it started with that. And there's a lot of things in the book like that. Dracula's not much in the novel. He's mentioned, he's off stage a lot. And the things they mention, though, Matt found all kinds of stuff in it. And I know the book, and I would say, yeah, that is true. I mean, it's stuff that I was saying, yeah, I remember that. But it stuck with Matt. And then Matt went further, and that's how basically 2 sentences became that graphic novel.
That's amazing. And it turned into this huge, beautiful volume.
Yeah, yeah. And
after those,
it really is epic in the good sense, not going on and on and on, and you don't know where you're going. It is something that is so entertaining for me, just as a script, that it's wonderful when it translates to paper like that. It gets into the book and that's the level of freedom I was talking about. Not only do I get to be free, but there's no one there saying, "Oh, you shouldn't draw that, or you shouldn't write that, or you shouldn't this." No, it's like, nope, this is it. We'll see what happens, and just let the readers decide.
Yeah. I was listening to another interview where you were talking about all you need is a good idea. All you need is just a good idea, and it could go. And that's exactly what this has proven to be. Yeah. 2 sentences in a book.
Yep.
And all it is Satan's school.
That's it.
And you just go from there.
And that, to anyone, when you sit around, you go, that's cool. Yeah, what is that? The one I'm on now, Matt just saying this thing about his women. And how did that happen? And why would they be chosen not to just be summarily killed? He goes into great detail through action rather than exposition and a guy telling you. You see it. And then you go, oh, that's probably what I like most myself when I'm reading something or watching something, rather than explaining it to the audience. You see it happen. I think character is based on action and what they do, and Matt will do that. And then what I really like is the dialogue does not have to say what you see already. They're saying whatever while he's doing whatever. I think one of the most frightening things to me in the first volume, and it's not, and it's what makes good horror, is when you see Vlad going off into the forest in winter and he's chopping down the saplings, and you realize he's making sharpened poles. And he's not saying cackling evil. He's just doing this. And you go, oh my God, it's coming. And it's just so casually, wonderfully well done while he's considering all the other things he has to do. And you just see him doing this. And that was brilliant. It's just a page or 2, but it's brilliant. And it makes tension. In a movie, you can do things where you have jump scares or you can use music to do whatever. But comics are a silent medium. So when he gave a scene like that, it creates an underlying tension. Poor Constantine, his lieutenant. I didn't see that coming. What happened?
Oh man.
You know, but that makes an underlying moment of tension to when later on, whenever he's dealing with anyone, you just wonder, you know, the ends justify the means to him. And he's about power. He doesn't see himself as evil. He doesn't say, ooh, I'm going to do things. He doesn't do any of that, which makes him far more frightening because it's like Tony Soprano or something.
Yeah. Yeah. He knows what it takes, and he's not above doing it.
He will do what it takes to, oh, I mean, he'll say it's for my land and my people, but who's it for? You know, ultimately. But you know, that's what makes it fascinating, is he's kind of finding out as he goes. He discovers the curse of, you know, there's a great line in the book where there are things worse than death, he says. And he's talking about immortality. That you can't die that's a biblical curse, is you don't die. You have to live. Unless you take your own life, you have to live. And the world changing, I mean, everyone goes through that, right? When you're 20, everything's this way. When you're 40, you're like, well, what the hell is going on? And you know, as you go on. But think centuries. And that curse develops more than I have to drink blood, or I you know, religious objects affect me. I can't cross water. I mean, all these things that we know, I have no reflection, but it grows. And it's the brilliant thing that Matt did was Satan's curse does not just stop with this, you know. The fact that he's an impaler influences why Satan says you can only kill them with a stake. It's a great touch by Matt, right? There's so many of those little nuggets that he'll do that you know, here's all the power, but you can't really leave relatively the few 100 square miles or square acres or whatever of his territory. But you have all the power that could take the world, but you can't leave this section. That's wonderful and maddening, you know. And Matt exploits all that.
Yeah. Yeah. Going back to what you were mentioning, which I love, you know, you're talking about comics, especially this type of storytelling. It doesn't need a lot of it's great if it doesn't need exposition. The action tells the story. The action is what's doing the talking. And one of the examples of it in the first volume that I absolutely loved is the image of Satan, how you see him, how he presents.
Yeah.
And the reader is initially seeing him one way, as kind of like a young child almost. Yeah. And as each student explains what they see, you see that image, you see that silhouette portrayed on, and you're seeing it, and it's the action, the image is coming. It's like, oh my gosh, it's so clever. You know, yeah, of course it would make sense. Everyone's going to see Satan differently. He's going to present, maybe depending upon your culture, maybe depending upon, you know, where you're from and what those traditions say of these people, and he's going to look different. She is going to look different.
Yeah.
And that's a brilliant example of what you're talking about, is the action is the storytelling.
Yeah. And Matt's brilliance was in doing that. He knew that it would affect the reader like the same way, you know, that when you read that and you realize they all have a different perception. And they're all having a different experience than he is. And they came there for different reasons, and they state what they are. Most of them are what they are. Dracula's is on such a grand scale. And he's imperious because he was born in that way. The others are what they are, and kind of from different times, you know. So it plays with all these possibilities, and that this 10-year this 10-year educational experience, and you see that Vlad really does want this. I mean, he really does the work, and the rivalries it makes with the others, and you don't know what will I didn't know. The fact that he wouldn't even he would acknowledge Satan to a point, but he wouldn't let Satan divert him from his own goals. That was fabulous. I mean, that is a great scene. And the fact that Satan admires it, but doesn't admire it like, yeah, you've proved yourself. It's like, okay, you're now going to suffer this. It's wonderful. It's a delightful, if that's the word, but it's a absolutely thrilling scene.
Yeah.
And I think Matt does Satan better than anyone I've read in a long, long time. That is a Satan.
And you mean that as a compliment?
I was gonna say, what a statement.
It is. It's like when because you've read him, you've seen it, whatever. But his Satan is, wow. That's the dude. None of what he does is not authentic. What Matt writes. So when it gets into my hands, you try to match that.
There's you get lost in this book in volume 1. You get lost in the story. You get lost in the art so much, and because it's kind of the precursor. It's kind of the it's the first step to the rest of the story,
right?
And I remember just recently seeing a preview of a page that you did, and it's showing Vlad moving away the stone of his sarcophagus.
Yeah.
And you get so lost in that first volume, you go, oh yeah. Oh yeah, like he eventually becomes that, but you're so engrossed in the story now and what he's doing now and the process and journey to that.
I agree.
That it's like, oh my God, we're just getting started. We haven't even gotten that yet. It's amazing.
I think what Matt did, and it was a neat trick, was he doesn't really do vampire stuff till the very end of the first book, and you don't feel like you missed anything.
No, not at all.
It is one of the best pieces of variety. I mean, I keep saying that, but what I'm glad about is you're reacting to the story the way I reacted to it when it was just me reading it in my studio. And I went, this is unbelievable. I get to the end and he finally becomes kind of who we know as the character. And I didn't miss it at all. And I went, I didn't even want, I mean, he did say to me, well, do you think that will be disappointing? I said, God, it wasn't to me. I said, when I read this, it was like, I'm turning the pages. And I thought, and I had told him at one point, I said, Matt, if you want, you should turn this into a novel. This could be a series of your versions of, and he says, no, this is meant for comics. This is comics. I love comics. I don't want to be a novelist. I don't want to write like that. I like to do comics. And he's such a hardcore comics guy that way. For all of the things he does that is inventive and new, he does not want to change the form. He wants the form to be exploited as best it can with what we do. And I think he did it. I haven't frankly read anything like this in a long time. Just as a fan, my participation notwithstanding.
It does feel, I mean, man, it really lined up perfectly for the season. It is, and it's so much different than I think, like what you're saying. It's a different type of horror. It's a different type of comic, and it's not telling these kind of horror stories the way you would think. It's telling a story that just happens to kind of be horrific.
And there's a level of tragedy to it, which makes it even more interesting because of he's not a romantic character. And he's not like the way they portray vampires in culture, where they're this romantic person who, you know, are beings and that. No, he's an unscrupulous prick.
Mm-hmm.
And he will do whatever it takes to get to where he has to go. And oh yeah, he's a vampire.
Mm-hmm.
But before he's a vampire, he's just as bad. And you know, his name was the Impaler. So you know, in those times, it's just easier chop off their head or stab them or something. No, you know, and then move on. This guy said, nope, we got to chop down some trees. We got to sharpen them. We got to plant, you know, all this effort. And they don't die quickly. And that's one of the things that Matt wanted to say. Look, they say Impaler, we never really see him do it. So I want to see him do it. And I want to see this character fully formed.
Mm-hmm.
The curse will affect him, but he's who he is. And he's a fascinating character. Usually unlikable characters or characters you can't identify with are problematic because people feel they got to put something in. Matt never did, and he's engrossing, and you're fascinated. What will happen to him next? You know, what will he do next? And that in and of itself is, I think, as fascinating, I think, I've seen in whether it's books, movies, television, comics. It's a neat trick to do because his loneliness is not done in a, you know, you can tell he's an isolated character before he even gets to see Satan. He's his own guy. He has certain things. I mean, if there's a thing, he kind of is okay with his women, but he'll still impale them and kill them and whatever if they cross for whatever his lines are. He may not tell you.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the only thing you kind of see, and that would obviously be why there's brides now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Speaking to the kind of tragedy, the tinge, there is a tinge of humanity that gets, I think, there's like just this little moment where he's talking. He's talking to the demon, the demon in the mirror, the being in the mirror.
Yeah.
And they say they're all going to betray you.
Yeah.
And he says, all of them.
Yeah.
Because he's not saying it out loud, but he's asking, is she going to also?
Yes.
And he goes, there's just this little spark of humanity that gets snuffed out.
Yes. And then he does the thing in there where she says, if I would have been with the group, not out looking for snakes, you would have impaled me. And he probably would have.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Matt leaves it open. I said, no, he'd have done it.
He made enough. He
was able to calm down in his own way. And then she comes back later and sees what's happened. But at the time he would have, I mean, that's the great scene with his lieutenant, you know, who is every bit the loyal guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that scene with the lieutenant makes you on edge with him all the way through.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah. And then I think it was at one point he says, Constantine, he was so loyal to me, and it's like he's not dead yet, but he says he was so loyal to me. I'll miss him, and it's like, oh God, like you see a little bit of foreshadowing, but you don't see how brutal. You don't think how brutal, and you don't see that one coming.
No, I didn't. When I read it, I didn't, and I remember liking this character. I thought, oh, this is a good balancing here. You can bounce things off this as just on a literary, and then boom. That happened, and I went, "Oh my God!" And I remember telling Matt, I said, "That affected me." Just reading a script, I'm going, I got into it, and Matt says, "Hey, if you're not willing to do things to your character, you're not really writing." You know, and I said, "Well, you certainly did." That was, but yes, and he's telling Constantine as he's dying, "You're serving me still." and I'll not forget you. You were loyal and great, and I will miss you. Hey, now I got to get on to the next my next mission. I got to do my next task.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
This is just one step in the direction that I'm heading. And speaking of, just horrific, I'd like to know, because you could have just done, Vlad decapitates, feeds Constantine's head to the guard, and you're done. But he decapitates him, and he literally peels the flesh slowly off of the skull.
Yeah.
And it's like it's the beak of the creature, but the face of the creature is what's showing you the pleasure that he's experiencing from eating.
Yeah. Well, that was just fun to do because how many demons have, that's another challenge. You see them all the time. And you see things like that all the time. And I just felt that should be different. That should be really different. And that demon was very different.
Yeah.
I just liked he would, I was thinking, and that's a good point. A good thing you caught. I wanted to show his face, the pleasure of it, because not only is he enjoying eating Constantine, he enjoyed what Dracula did. There's that twofold thing. That's pretty good. But it gave me a chance to break those things up in one panel rather than two. I could do it in one. And that made that creature just came to life.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a crazy creature. And what a cool idea to one part of him, the beak or whatever you want to call it, is eating the head, while the face, the extended head and face, shows the reader the pleasure that he's experiencing at the same time. It's very cool.
If you ever see, I mean, people don't, but all those old medieval manuscripts of devils and demons, they're all pretty weird in that, they're very strange. And I think, frankly, more frightening than things we do now. So I was trying to echo that kind of stuff, like those, 11th, 9th, 8th century, 10th century manuscripts are freaky.
Yeah. Speaking of freaky, speaking of grotesque, and you were mentioning this earlier. Yeah. You mentioned this scene earlier, and Matt Wagner saying, I want to see this. And you're like, are you sure? Because I'm going to go there.
Yeah.
And I just want to quickly note and shout out, Kelley, your attention to detail with literally the the stake going through and impaling through the sphincter.
Yeah.
And I love how, because when you think of this, it comes out the mouth. No, it doesn't.
No.
It's going to come out the chest, the shoulder, the neck. It's never going to be.
They could, when I did a lot of research on little things, and one of them is this. They were so good at it that they could have it come out your mouth if they were going to make a point that way, and you would want it to, because that'd kill you. That was actually the one where it was merciful. The ones where they'd have it come out of your shoulder or your clavicle, you were going to be there and most likely die of suffocation.
Oh my God.
It took you a while. Die of thirst or suffocation. That's how good they were at this. Obviously men, they did it one way, women, they did it another. And it's pretty horrific. And the fact that he did 20,000 people in one shot, and that is a fact, you can see why it would turn an army back.
I'm just imagining your Google search history after researching for pages like that.
Funny. It's like I tend to not look on Google because the same stuff will come up for everyone. And that's why I have a gigantic library. So I have original referencing.
Oh my.
So mine will look differently. And yes, when you have the history of Transylvania, I had all these books already. So you get medieval. I have a huge section on history. And when you get to that, there was one on punishments and tortures and all these things. And there was some chapters on impalement, and they're incredibly detailed. I mean, the records of these are incredibly detailed. That they would grease impalement stakes so it would slide through. And they knew how to do it, like I said, to miss all the vital stuff. So your heart and lung would be fine, and you'd be breathing and your heart beating. And I can't imagine what that would be like for those people.
Lovely.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah,
man.
You know, you say
but
that,
that's what sets you apart. That's why you're the best choice for this, because yeah, you're not tapping the same source that most people would have.
That stuff would make me, in general, I don't want to see that. But being sensitive to it, then you say, well, how is it done? And the fact that I built a big library was when I was doing Batman years ago with Doug Minch. I had a lot of books, but when I went to his house, and his house was basically a library.
Wow.
It was bookcases all through the house, down the hallways, every room other than the kitchen. Every room was just paneled with books. And so at that point, seeing it, I realized, okay, that's you don't get rid of this stuff, you keep it. Now it makes moving impossible, but that's the way my house kind of is too. For the most part, it's just books and books and books and books. And it's stuff you collect. I mean, you just won't buy them all one day. It's like the flotsam and jetsam of your life. You just stick it in, and one day I'll use it. I mean, when you're going through stuff, you say, one day I may need this, or one day this will be interesting. And history is always good because comics deal a lot with those things. Just so happened I was lucky to have some volumes on that, and I don't even remember buying them. I just remember I would go through, and you buy all the history of the Mongols, all the history of the Magyars, all the history of that, a couple of books here or there, because you can use them. There's a lot of good stuff in those kind of books. Same as for me, I found all these interesting books on several architects from Austria and Czechoslovakia, all this stuff from like 150 to 120 years ago. Their buildings, some were built, most weren't, but I used them for Gotham City. There's great ideas, these odd, weird ideas these guys had. They're old and new at the same time, and they look completely different. So you're just lucky. I've never seen anything like that in a Google search. And I actually had another artist tell me once, he goes, where are you finding this stuff? And this was just about 3 months ago. And I had said what I'm telling you. I said, well, I don't look on Google, because everyone will use the same stuff, and I've seen repeated images on certain things. Not the fault of the artist. It's just, that's what they found, So you're only as good as your research on that. And that's why you saw something different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're recreating it because you have your library at home that's filled with medieval torture and the specifics and volumes and all that stuff, right? And then I get this book sent to my home, and the cover says Dracula, and there's an image of Dracula, and my 7-year-old is like, "Ooh, Daddy, I like Dracula." It's like, listen, buddy,
no,
this is Daddy's. No. This goes in the library that you're not old enough to look at yet.
Yeah, when they're old enough. Look. To be honest, I have adult children. I won't let them look at it. So
yeah, you can read this when you're 30.
When I'm dead, you can look at it.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's phenomenal. I was also listening, because some of this stuff, like, yeah, I mean, I've had things. I have a big record collection. I have graphic novels and comics here, and I have to be careful of what you leave out, because for us, you mentioned before, like, sometimes you become desensitized to something that you're working on or looking at over and over again. You forget how disturbing it is. I think it was just like an album cover. I don't know if it was like an Iron Maiden cover or what. It was like a heavy metal cover. And my 7-year-old walks in. He goes, "Daddy, can you turn that around? That's too scary."
Yeah. That's yeah, it is.
And you look at it and you're like, oh, you don't even realize. Yeah, that is very disturbing. So, okay. And some of the stuff that's great is like, your stuff is so great because to somebody that's never seen your stuff before, maybe, to us, we're so used to it and we love it. We will dissect the little parts of
Yeah.
your art. But to somebody who doesn't know, they'll open this book up and they'll be like, "What am I looking at? Oh my God!"
So you're right, because think of your parents' house when you're growing up. There was none of that stuff anywhere. It was all like nice things and you know, Monet's flowers. If you had a book at all, it would be those kind of images. It was all nice, and neighbors could come by. And I, with my wife, I used to always keep those rooms with all that stuff separate. And like there would be the normal room, like the front room would be normal, and finally she gave in and just said, "Ah, to hell with it," and so the whole house is just these books and books and books. It isn't like disturbing objects and stuff, but just tons of books of all different subjects. And you're right, I would have, you know, my parents, it was a normal house, with vases and flowers and nice things, and then, but this is running through your head. So, but I can tell you, anytime someone comes over who I call civilians, just normal world people, they're absolutely captivated by it, because it's kind of cool to be around all that kind of stuff. I'm just glad they don't go look at the individual volumes all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Talking about scary and traumatic. You told the story. You have told the story. I didn't realize this. You saw the original Alien in theaters.
Yeah.
You didn't know what it was about. You
No.
thought it was like a Star Wars like knockoff.
Yeah.
And you sat in the movie and you realized what you were sitting through.
Friend of mine, a really good friend of mine, said, hey, there's this new science fiction movie you want to go see, and there was a thing in the newspaper, and it had this really kind of cool image in it of in a spacesuit or something. I said, yeah. And I just thought, because that was all what was going on then, was science fiction had come back after Star Wars, you're getting Close Encounters, and you're getting Superman, all that kind of stuff. So you go, yeah, let's go. And I sit down, and it was transformative. Like I said, I think I'm the kind of guy who likes horror. I love it. And I'm terrified of it at the same time. I am still squeamish, and I still can watch a movie like that. I don't get into all the, but I remember that one because every trope was broken. The character you thought was the hero dies. The creature was unlike anything I'd seen before. The atmosphere of the planet was just incredibly nightmarish. Lovecraftian, I guess, is the term. It was just so amazing. And it didn't use music the way music warns you in a movie. It didn't use any. It was just a little thing here, a little thing there, nothing ambient, basically. It used sound beautifully. The howling of the wind, or the clicking of the machines, the fan in the ship. Just wonderful use of the sound. So it was
no hard rock montage.
Nothing. It was throwing me off the whole time. And then when it delivered the goods, it really delivered the goods, and it really bothered me. That film was nightmarish to me. And I had a heavy metal issue of Heavy Metal before that came out, and it had some Geiger paintings in it.
Oh.
And I'd never seen anything like that. They were so horrific. And then you watch this, and I'm not thinking Geiger. It's afterwards I went, that's that dude. That crazy, crazy Swiss dude, And but man, that worked on me. And now I love it. But I went about several years until I got hired to really draw one, until I watched it again.
It was that traumatizing.
And I watched it again, and it did it to me again, and it's in my house. But it just works. I mean, sometimes movies will do that. There'll be just certain movies that work on you. It had, though, the great, great, great virtue of, no, it didn't have, I'd seen female heroes before. Princess Leia, I'd seen female heroes before, so that wasn't new. But what was new to me was it killed the people that I thought were going to be. It the characters developed as it went on. Throwing the robot in there was mean. No, but it had that beautiful, beautiful, wonderful thing where the cat lives.
Mm.
And Jonesy makes it, right? So even though you walk out of there traumatized, you go, oh, thank God they didn't have, you know. Now, if it were me doing it, I'd say, no, he gets Jonesy, and then they make a cat alien hybrid creature now, you know, something like that. But no, at the time I was like going, oh, good, they didn't get the cat, you know.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
man, that it's one of those films that because it's so well made, and I think you can look at when you have an A-list director do a horror film and not look down on them, they can do something remarkable. Friedkin did, certainly Kubrick did. They bring something that is different. They invent their own tropes, and that was Ridley Scott.
Mm. Absolutely. Very cool. And yeah, amazing to see a just completely different kind of world brought to life. And it's so scary and stark.
Yeah. They weren't heroes. They were merchant marines, a merchant, like in a merchant marine, just doing a big,
doing a job. They're truckers, basically.
Doing a ship, just a freighter.
Yeah.
No one is, particularly heroic in this. They do what they got to do. And I think that just you relate as the audience. You go, those are guys, people, just doing a job. And then you throw this thing from hell in it. It's wonderful.
Yeah. It's awesome to kind of hear how you had no idea what you were getting into, and you were stuck.
I was stuck. I couldn't get out. We were sitting there. We got great seats. I mean, they're right where you want them. And I was sitting next to this absolutely knockout little cheerleader girl. And she was with her football boyfriend. And he was like me. We're just dying. And I'll give her I'll never forget her. What a wonderful woman she must have turned out to be. And it's just a movie. It's okay. It'll be over in a little bit. Do you want to leave? And of course he couldn't leave either. Your manhood would be gone forever. So I was kind of taking strength out of her. Yeah, it's just a movie. Yeah, it's like, but she was great. And after we went out of there, I went, man, her parents must be awesome. They raised a really tough girl. That girl was like, well, that was a good movie. I like that movie. And we're all like sweated. I mean, I remember my friend, we were just dying. Nobody had seen anything like that. The audience had been put through the ringer. And I was always grateful that I got to see it when it came out next to her, because I would have been the one that said, yeah, we got to go. This is too much.
Yeah. Amazing.
It is amazing.
That's an awesome story. Very awesome. And it kind of like keys you into a little bit of the mind of Kelley Jones that is then able to create some of the stuff that you see.
Well, you have to be affected by this stuff. It has to get to you. It can't just be you get off on it. It has to be you're drawn into it. And it's not often you can say you're scared in a horror film. You can be shocked and whatever, but a horror film, if it's good, creates tension and something. They still make them. They're smaller. But they still make them. There's a tremendously good film recently I saw called A Dark Song, which is a small little English-Irish movie. It's terrifying, and it's so different. Starvaker is another really good small horror film that's terrifying. They take their time, but they get there. So they're still making them. I mean, I'm totally looking forward to Nosferatu by Robert Eggers.
Oh man, yeah.
But the films I'm telling you about, they're terrific, and I think they're on Prime or something like that. That's where I read about them, and since they're from the UK, they were hard to get until finally to get on streaming because they're not going to play here, you know. But
Mm.
I would have loved to have seen both those films in a theater. I would have loved that.
Mm.
Yeah, I just looked up Starvaker as you were talking about it.
Yeah.
That's a Matt Smith movie.
Matt Smith, and he's terrific. It and A Dark Song. I didn't know any of the people in it. Sometimes that helps when you don't know who they are. And it was one of the more original horror films I've seen. Just absolutely wonderful. And you're in it all the way. There's one called The Moor. And another, it's like from made in Yorkshire or something, or wherever the moors are in England. And wonderful. I mean, you think it's going to be one thing, it turns out to be another. You think someone's this way and they turn out to be another, but it's all through their actions. Brilliant. But all three of those were excellent. And things I'd only seen in the last couple of weeks. So they still make them.
Yeah. They're out there. They're still out there. And
well, I just like movies that make me get involved, and then just start giving you the creeps. I mean, if you see the stuff where, you know, like a Terrifier or something like that, you know it's going to be jump scares, and you know what you're getting into, and it's going to be what it is. These aren't makeup based things. They aren't, no CGI. They're flat out horror films though, and they bother you, which is the best.
That cerebral aspect to it, I think, is some of the scariest.
But they pay off too.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, holy shit.
Yeah.
But it's visceral.
Right. The most recent thing that is out there that I think it's popular right now that I wasn't expecting to be that disturbed by was the Netflix Menendez story.
Yes.
And I should have done some reading.
Yeah.
Because I didn't. And it happened, what, 30 years ago, 30 plus years ago?
It was upsetting.
And
that was upsetting.
Watching that as it's being told back. And I mean, I remember having to take several days off. I think I watched 3 episodes in a row, and I was like, I need to not watch this for a while.
Yeah.
Because it reminded me of what scary means to me, because there's been a few times since my childhood where I've really felt the feeling where not just is it like a fear, but it's this uneasiness, like I'm not supposed to be watching this.
Yeah. The taboo nature of anything makes it better, right? Whether it's a pleasure or a horror or a whatever. I think the great writer M.R. James, who is absolutely on my highest recommendation for anyone to read. He only wrote short stories, but he called it a pleasant terror. And it is, but you have to get away, right? To feel that exhilaration or feel that fear or feel that tension, that's it's a strong emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to replicate. So when you come across something like that, yes, especially something that really happened.
Yeah, I think that's what the extra added layer is, that this is real. It's not fake. This is real. And then, going back to the book, 20,000 people impaled over a battlefield.
And he put them in, it's one of the little details they usually don't mention, is he put them in the Muslim Crescent because they were Muslims.
Oh my God.
So when they came there, it wasn't just this forest that was 2 miles across. I mean, 2 miles of this. And he did them in the Crescent to let them know that's what happens to invaders. Now, to me, logistically, that's 20,000 poles. They had to be up tall enough so they could see. Can you imagine when they started the project of impaling these guys?
Well, what do you do? I mean,
that's the thing that always gets me. His dudes. What kind of power did he have to where they would just do what he said?
Yeah.
And that wasn't their first rodeo when it came to impaling people. So clearly they had master impalers to be able to do that in that time, to get 20,000 guys impaled before the advancing army comes.
And to be able to withstand being so close to that pretty quickly, that's going to smell unbearable.
And, well, when they got there, these poor individuals were covered in crows. So it isn't like they're just there. They're covered with carrion
They're
birds.
getting eaten. Jesus.
Some of them were still alive.
Jesus.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, that would turn your army around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm imagining being the dude who's standing there next in line watching my buddy get put through, and I'm just like,
you're next.
Wow.
You're next. And these guys were so good. Like, none of them died while they did it. And you know they didn't die because Vlad would have killed an impaler who wasted that opportunity for suffering. And he would have. You had to know your job.
Yeah. I wanted to you shared and I know you've been sharing on Twitter some of these images of your work.
Yeah.
Are they're from across, I want to say some of this stuff is mostly from the second volume, right? The recent stuff.
Some of it is, and some of it's unused material. That's from the next book.
Wow. So with some of this quote unquote unused, would these might be maybe some little bonus treats that you might not that one yet.
I think, yeah. I mean, there's stuff in there that I think would make that. I mean, people are genuinely very interested in it, and I think that's I am with other artists. So, and I always Matt has been thinking about that before I did. I wasn't really thinking of these kind of volumes, so he said later on it would be kind of cool to have all that there. And I just love pages like that. That's like my old school comics, you know, where you overlap images and shit. I love that.
Yeah, I love that. That was cool. That's very cool to do. Obviously, I'm like, oh, thank God they did that as a preview. That's so cool to kind of anticipate. And here's the image I was talking about.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, yeah, like this stuff right here.
Yeah,
I love.
Yeah.
You know what's such a treat of that first issue, that first volume rather, is almost entirely, well, I mean, depending upon the beat where you're at, the last part of it takes place almost entirely in the shadow world.
Yeah.
Beneath, you know, in below.
Yeah.
And it just feels so cavernous and huge though.
Yeah. I wanted it claustrophobic and horrible. Like it was all these like a maze of caverns and rooms and all like a castle with no windows.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. Dungeon.
Yeah.
Yeah. The rooms and stuff underneath.
Yeah.
And
yeah, there'd be no windows in a place like that.
Yeah. Here's the this is your cover of the brides. And also as you're flipping through this book, obviously, you know, with the Red Rain and the Batman Dracula trilogy, you start to realize, oh man, when you were drawing Batman, that was Dracula. That was,
well, he's a thing of fear, right?
Beautiful.
Batman to me, number one is fear. That's what he does. And there's no need to improve upon that as your starting point with the character. Someone doing good, I've had people say, oh, he gets revenge. He doesn't get revenge. It's a reckoning, which is different. Revenge is small. Reckoning is epic. And that's how I saw him. And
wow.
In fact, when I did doing Dracula with Batman, he had to be more of a corruption. And so his character wasn't as important as what his effect was, because essentially that's what he's going to do to Batman. That was the main thing about Dracula, was that's what would happen to Batman if that were the case. And it was Doug's thing of his strength of will. How long would that last? Because he is Bruce's great will is, of all the characters in comics, his is the greatest. So how long would that last? And that was a good trick. Getting to do Dracula now, I can just cut loose on that character. And at that point get to show, well, who is this guy, you know? And again, fear. I mean, that's what he did to his enemies before he was dead, was fear.
Yeah. Yeah, excellent. I mean, and it's something that like Satan's walking through and he sees all the other students and it's like, oh,
Well,
oh.
yeah, exactly. I mean, if he would have had the technology, all Vlad would have had to done is have a big projector with Alien on it, and my whole army would it all went home.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple of other things. This is we're talking about Batman a little bit. It's going to be about it's almost I want to say it's 33 years now of the beginning of the trilogy. I put this
Yeah.
statue up. That's Francesco's telling of
Yes.
your
Yeah.
piece, and they made that into a beautiful. There's so many statues and figures, and you were saying in another interview you were so surprised by the response and now by the longevity of that series that it's something that you never expected.
No, you don't. When you do it, especially that, they hadn't really done while it was in the pipeline, there were no Elseworlds, and they didn't talk that way. And certainly that was something that came up after the fact. But what I liked about it was the story was really good. But the reason I didn't think so was it wasn't in canon in the sense that it would affect the regular line book. So my narrow vision of stuff would be, well, I'm enjoying this and I get to draw Batman. They'll never let me draw Batman. So this will be fun, but it won't probably be much over its publication year because it's not in canon. And that surprised me that it did as well as it they just reprinted it again.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that will always be probably the biggest surprise in my career was that, because I just didn't see it coming. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a terrific, terrific story. I loved everything. Les Dorscheid's coloring was brilliant. Everything worked on that. Everything really worked. And geez, when it came out and sold out that day it came out, I remember DC calling me the next day and saying they're all gone. And I went, my first thought was like the shipment was something happened to the shipment because I didn't, and they said, no, they're sold out. They're all gone. And that still was a shock. And then because I was going to do some signings in the Bay Area and they didn't have any copies other than whoever bought it. So you sat there and they were desperate to try to find copies. Well, they were all gone. And that's the old Hollywood adage of nobody knows anything is true. You don't.
Yeah. Yeah. I was seeing a young interviewer showing you their Funko Pop Red Rain Batman.
Yes.
And he was saying it's not often that you see a comic edition of Funko. Usually it's all the films that they're doing it off of, but this is so popular and such an iconic image that Funko got onto that one for sure.
Yeah, it's just it's still, I think part of it was when they said draw him, they never said draw him skeletal. They never said draw him with the wing. That was not in it. It was just, but I did it just to make it look like, yes, he's been affected by this. So I started making him far more monstrous. And as it went, I wanted that monstrous to get worse because he's denying himself human blood. And he's living on animal blood. So at that point, I thought, okay, he's got to be far more horrific as it goes. And becoming that thing he was in, pretending to be, he becomes that thing. And that to me just visually really worked. And thank God DC didn't say stop it, because it was a real corruption of that character. I mean, beyond the artistic side of it, physically, I mean, what are you doing to our Batman, you know?
Yeah.
But it really worked.
Yeah. And you know, I don't know if you've mentioned who convinced you or who kept you, because you mentioned that initially you thought it was just the regular Batman run, and then when you signed on, you realized, no, this is like an Elseworlds, and you were like, what? And
yeah,
you were like, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I want to stay on this.
It was well, because it was so different. It was until I read the actual outline, because they just told me on the phone, and I had to pretend to be like interested because I'm like going, well, you know, Batman fights Dracula, and I went, well, why can't he fight the Penguin and the Joker? You know, that kind of. I was thinking two-dimensionally, and they said, but we don't want you to decide until you've read it over, and then so they sent it, and I got about. It was a big proposal, maybe 30, 40 pages. It was big. It kind of highlighted all the scenes because it was still being worked out. It had a different name then. It was I forget, Scarlet, something in Scarlet. I forget. So anyway, about 5 or 6 pages, 10 pages in, I stopped reading. I called him and said, I'll do it, because it was that good. It was that interesting. And then I realized, and like I had said earlier, I was just coming off of Deadman and Sandman, and so I did a Swamp Thing, and I did that kind of stuff. So I wanted to be stereotyped as the horror guy.
Nice.
I wanted that, and because I'm not going to be able to compete with the other guys on what they do, but I was more interested in this material anyway. This was the stuff I read as a kid. It's the stuff I still enjoyed. I never got tired of it. It had different demands, different tropes, different visual language in horror, where you can a wider range, I should say. So I could do more than what you would get in superhero stuff. It just, as an artist, it's more interesting, and it's why you get the images you can get. And I always work towards that image that is like, wow. And every once in a while, like I said, coming around to Alien, when I did the Alien miniseries, I did a shot that they actually told me that they used in one of the more recent Ridley Scott Alien films, where you see this character talking, and all of a sudden that second set of jaws come through his mouth because one came up from behind and it came out his mouth. And then they used that, and they were nice enough to let me know that they were going to use that shot. So it's weird how it goes in
crazy.
Circle, you know?
That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. It's go ahead, Robin.
On the topic of, we're talking about the Batman stuff. If anyone listening hasn't already read those, your comic shop can still get the Elseworlds Batman Volume 2 book, which collects Red Rain, Bloodstorm, and Crimson Mist all into one book.
Yeah, that's a big book too. That's a lot of comics in there, and they're all separated by a few years. I mean, I didn't think there'd be a sequel, and then they had been asked enough to where the people. I mean, it's the thing where you feel like I wasn't really wanting to do that, and I was thinking you guys can get someone else if you want. But they had been so kind to do it in the beginning and be so supportive and let me run wild that, at that point I said, okay, let me read it. And it was excellent. I thought the second one with the Joker was terrific. And, of course, that one did the same business as the first one. So at that point, I remember Denny O'Neil saying, well, you can't just have it be 2. It's got to be a trilogy. And so and that's how the third one came about. He just was really he wanted 3, and again, the people in the office had been so supportive and so kind. It was you don't want to put people out of work too. So there's all the people that were going to work on it. That's a good job for them. So at that point, it was easy to say yes. Though the stories were excellent.
It helped. You could say, okay, there's Neil Adams' Batman.
Yep.
There's there's Norm Brayfogel's Batman. Yep. There's Kelly Jones's Batman.
And if there's a thing I can always say is, I remember when I first started at Marvel that they had said they used to teach so well there, and one of the editors had said, look, you want people to do what you just said, label you to a character, or know your stuff without seeing it signed. nothing like that. You want people who like it and people who don't like it to be for the same reason. It's oh, I love it, it's really dark and creepy. Oh, I don't like it, it's dark and creepy. Or the ears are so long, I love it. The ears are so long, I don't love it. You know, that kind of stuff. They wanted it the same. So in that, I always felt, though I did it at DC, my old Marvel teachers would have liked that. And the fact that it did get, one of the great things I ever had was Neil Adams coming up to me and saying that. He says, you know, I'm the 70s guy, you're the 90s guy for that. And he loved it. He loved the ideas that I was doing. And I said, well, you can't compete with your art, Neil. You know, you're Neil. And so the only way to compete with a guy at that level is ideas. And that was what I did with the cape and the cowl, and turning it into more of a film noir horror vibe to it. And that's the only way to do it. And he liked that. He says, yeah, you're doing your own thing. And it's all and that's all. Any artist, if I ever taught art, it would be boring because it would all be on ideas. It's because ultimately everyone can learn how to draw a hand or perspective, but the ideas are what it's going to come down to.
That's not true. I know an artist who can't draw feet, so.
But he had the idea.
But he can draw rocks.
He had the idea of feet, but
we're joined
off that composition.
Kelley, we're joined by we're joined by co-host / ultimate Kelley Jones fanboy, Grandpa Batman from
Grandpa
Texas,
Batman.
And we told Kelley that there'd be some people hopping on, and we'd have to play a game to let them in the room. So we're doing that right now. Kelley, you shared this on your Twitter, and obviously this. If we were to merge worlds with the Kelley Jones Batman and the film and television Batman, this is something of what it looked. My question is to Grandpa Batman, which one would you be if you could pick to be one of these Kelley Jones film Batmen? Which would you be, Gramps?
Which would I be?
Yeah, which one would you choose to be?
Well,
there's no wrong answer.
Yeah, there is no wrong answer.
I would choose to be, I guess, the Affleck.
Oh, okay, the Affleck. Robin, who would you choose to be?
Well, going strictly on which one is, I think, best suited to this look, I think it looks the best on the Bale.
Okay. It does look great on the
right.
Bale.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I see that. I see that. I would pick, in my opinion, the most frightening one to me is probably the Clooney version, because I don't know. That version, I don't know what he's up to. He's probably this. If I saw that one on the street, I'd be like, "What the hell is going on there?"
Yeah.
Kelley,
and also you love George Clooney.
There it is. Which would you pick, Kelley?
See, that's the problem. I love them all. So I think they'd all look good.
You're biased.
These are,
I am.
In a strange way, these are all your children.
Yes, I thought it was funny when I saw it. It was sent to me by a friend of mine, and she was an editor, used to edit, and she thought that was really funny. But she said, aren't they kind of cool? And I said, they are, but you can't do it in a real world, because how does he get into the Batmobile, or how does he get into the door? I never had to deal with that stuff,
That's true. Yeah.
But
he doesn't. He gets in on a motorcycle.
Yeah, that's it. But for me, in an alley, boy, it sure works in these.
Yeah.
I've always thought that the ears on the cow were like retractable. Like,
well, I used to make him kind of lay down when he was like fighting. They would like kind of pin back a little bit like a cat.
Oh, that's awesome.
But that wasn't like part of that was just artistic license.
Now, if you drew Daredevil, would his spikes go about 3 feet out?
If I drew Daredevil, I probably with Daredevil would
they be more like the demonic looking horns? Like
I don't know if I would mess with that so much as I would want to mess with the costume a little bit.
Oh,
I think with Spider-Man, I'll dig it up one day and post it, but I wanted to take a shot at Spider-Man, and I drew it, and they said it was too creepy.
Oh, that sounds awesome. We got to see that.
It was just I didn't think it was that, but they thought it was too creepy. So
You had the webs coming out of his ass. Is
it
that
was
what
just
happened?
it was something like that,
or his nipples or something.
Yeah.
It's anytime someone says that's too creepy, that Kelley Jones is too creepy. Oh, let's get a look at that real quick.
Yeah.
Gramps is holding on to his Kelley
There you
Jones
go.
cover. There you go.
That,
yeah, look at that beautiful thing.
I like that it's European size. That was a cool design thing that Matt did.
Very cool.
Yeah.
It's gotta feel good to start see, because what's really cool is this is all just kind of an idea you had. You did it yourselves. You did the fan backing, crowdfunding. And what I think is really cool though, the posters behind you, the volume 2 poster, and then you see the volume 1 behind that.
Yeah.
With those posters, was that because I don't remember. Well, let me see, because there was the print version. I haven't cracked that open.
Yeah.
Well, if you haven't already talked about it already, and I'm sure you probably have, but the Kickstarter for book 2, The Brides, is now up. And
yeah.
And I cannot wait.
It is, the difficult thing of the last year doing this was saying, guys, this is really good. But I hate when people tell me something's really good and I can't tell what it is. Everyone says that whatever, it's really good. Now that it's come out, I can honestly say, yeah, it's real. The Brides is really good. Because you have to taste it on now. And like I said, I've got over half of it done, and it's lettered, colored, the whole thing. It is absolutely wonderful. I think for me, it's just reading it. I think somewhere along the line, I forget which director had said that once you put the score to the film, it became a movie.
Oh yeah,
and that's the way it is for me when I see it lettered and colored. Then
you know how I can tell a book is really good is when I'm reading it in the living room.
Yeah.
And my wife walks by and goes, "What the hell are you reading?"
Yeah. It's you should always be ashamed reading my stuff. That's
or terrified.
Yeah, I like ashamed. I like taboo. I like I like things that kind of make people question their friendships with you. Yeah, that's
yeah.
Well, they won't let you watch their kids. Those things.
Yeah, you could just say, "This is history. I'm reading history. I'm sorry."
Yeah.
That's what I told her. I was like, "This is the story of Dracula told from his point of view."
Yes, and he doesn't think he's done anything wrong.
Nor should he.
No. Why would he
spikes up people's buttholes?
No,
sure.
They had it coming.
It's the
they
times.
They had it coming.
Context.
We were mentioning, Gramps, how much detail that Kelley paid to exactly where the stake goes and how it comes out. And
I mean, that's like page 4.
Yeah, it's pretty early on.
Well, it's hey kids, here we go.
Yeah.
Why wait for some? It's a good prologue scene, right? Now anything can happen.
I mean, are we going full spoiler here?
Go ahead.
Well, yeah, the book's already, as this comes out, book's already out. We told them in the first 5 minutes, get the book.
I mean, this is what's we've had similar chats in the past. And Kelley, first of all, thank you so much for doing this again with us. Thank you so much.
I'm very happy to be here. Yes.
And the fact that you're doing this book or sequence of books with one of my favorite writers, I mean, I'm just over the moon. The fact that in the panel on the page before, the small panel, he's like, let me go just check out my woods that I set up here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I turned that page and I'm like, oh.
Well, what I love Matt did is he's just finished with 2 women, and it's the night before a big battle. He seems fairly calm about the whole thing,
as one should.
And then you see that's why he's calm about the whole thing. I mean, the 2 women are great, but you'd think he'd be with his generals and stuff getting ready. And is everything good to go for the big battle the next day? But no, he's drinking and pouring. And then when you go out there, you see, oh, that's why he does these things.
And see, this is the element of Dracula that, I mean, it's hinted at in the movies and stuff like that. but the dude is just a pimp, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, he
Well,
loves him some ladies.
he was born to his position. He was raised by in psychopathic ways. You know, the real one, and we mention it, was 10 years, I believe, roughly 10 years, 5 years, something like that, as a hostage, traded hostage with the Turkish sultans. And
traded by his dad.
Yeah,
so
they would be peace. And after peace had been met for so long, he was sent home. Well, the historical one was taught. They taught him his letters. He knew he could speak and write in several different languages. He was well versed in religion, whether it be Roman Catholic, Eastern Orthodox, or Islam. So he knew. He was a highly educated man, but he saw incredible violence while with the sultans, and clearly always watching that it could happen to him, what they were doing. So he learned what they did, and he upped what would be horrifying.
He said, "Hold my beer."
Yes, what he said.
Not revenge. What did you say? Not revenge, but
a reckoning.
A reckoning.
Yeah. And that's different. And a reckoning's worse. Revenge is over with. Reckoning doesn't end.
That's what it feels like. That's what it feels like. Is why he's so, like, even in the school, the rest of them are looking at kind of like worldly or individual kind of power or conquest, or the reasons they're using this, or the reasons they're there. And his is to, I want to scorch the earth.
Yeah,
they're treating it like Hogwarts.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
like,
it's like they're all very small in what they want to him. He looks at it as like, is that all you want? You know, is that all you would do? And in his scheme of things, he's there for a reason, and that is to keep his land clear and he be in charge.
Well, his first thing he tries to learn is, how do I kill Satan?
Well, he wouldn't let Satan get in the way of his plans, you know, and he's still thinking himself a Christian,
right?
Because he was in life, he was a very devout one, but he did all these things.
Yeah. And I love, it's when they first get into the school and they're pledging their loyalty, it's the reverse of that prayer. What is it? The Apostles' Creed? I don't know which prayer it is. Yeah. And it's denouncing every stanza, every line of the Apostles' Creed. It's the inverted.
Yeah, it's kind of their school pledge, you know. And it is something that lets you know he's that committed to this. And now it's become, it has nothing to do with the reasons that he thought. It's completely inwardly turned. It's not about the people. It's not about for God. It's not about for any of that. It's because it's his land. He just doesn't have the troops. He doesn't have all the means to wage war against an empire.
Now, was there any one page or panel when you sent it back to Matt that he just said, "Oh shit"?
Matt's thing would be like, I remember the demon. He said, I did not see that. You know, the impaling, he did not. He thought you know, silhouettes or something in the distance, but not a how do you do it?
Especially the kid.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because they did as many men and women as they did kids. You got to remember, being a kid then, you were grown up pretty much by 8. You were lucky to make 22.
Right.
So anything that got in the way, if you broke the laws, if you were part of a family that defied him.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't care.
Right.
You can always get more peasants. Like I said, when I read it, they were very detailed on how you impale women and how you impale men, how high sometimes it should be.
Mm-hmm.
It was a fairly involved process. I mean, these people knew anatomy. I'll give them that.
Yeah,
they definitely did their studying.
Yeah, unimaginable suffering is what they was after, and that's what he got.
Is there anything to the opposite of Grabs's question? When this first of all, how lucky are you? You get to be the first person to read any of this stuff.
Yeah,
before everybody else. Is there anything that comes across you're flipping through the script and you look at either a panel or whatever it might be, and you go, "Oh yeah, I know exactly how. Oh, I can't wait to do that one."
There was a lot of those in there, and they were ones. They're always the ones of either violence or something sexual or something like that, because you want to do it differently than everyone else. You don't want to do it the way everyone does it, and you want to come up with something different and something unique. And at that point, those are the little challenges. The other things being like there'll be a panel here or there, like when he's dealing with the witch. I wanted that to be particularly upsetting.
Dealing with the witch? Is that what you're calling it?
When he's at her cottage or he's at her.
Well, it's each step along the way, things he has to do. You know,
the grossest part.
It was
spitting into the cauldron.
Oh yeah, she's wonderful. The witch is wonderful in this. She's and then to make it a little easier on him, she makes him think he looks like this incredibly beautiful woman, but she's not.
Yeah,
that's just how it looks to him.
Right. Oh, I know that. I can't wait for the repercussions of that meetup.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I mean, but each step along the way, it's like, you start with the impalings, and then you go to the poor guy whose job was to look like him, and what happens to him.
That was an awesome scene. I really liked that.
Yeah, it was a really good. It's strategic. It worked.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get then to the witch, or you Constantine, all these things build and build and build, and you don't see him other than motivated to go on to the next challenge. Not like all the rest of us go, yeah, the witch, I'm out, we're done. Turkey wins,
Yeah.
The Muslims win this one. We're out. But that's what made him his singular drive.
But you don't know Tom that well, because he would have saw that witch and be like, I can do this.
You didn't have to go too far. You didn't have to, she was, I like them older, as they say. And
and she is, God knows how old. So you were
great. Yeah, she's right in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Hey, I had one question. You did the colors on this as well, right?
No, that was Jose Villarrubia.
Maybe I misread the credits wrong then. My bad. Edit that out.
No, he
nope, staying in.
He's been remarkable and just a wonder.
Oh, color art.
Yeah.
I thought I read cover art.
No, he was Matt had seen his recreations of the original color for Richard Corbin and for Swamp Thing, and they were remarkable. I mean, they were painstaking, but he understood letting the blacks just be black and not overcoloring with special effects, just coloring brightly. And so he stepped into this very easily.
Well, his coloring really is an art form in this book as well.
It truly is. And he heightens the blacks in the book. So it all works.
Yeah. It's, I mean, it's, I was thinking as I was finishing the reread, I go, this is the perfect graphic novel.
Yeah. Thank you. That's high praise. So I appreciate it. I mean, like I think I told you earlier, sometimes you just know, okay, we got something here. And like in a film, you can see the rushes and know something's going to happen. I remember Robert Evans talking about Rosemary's Baby, and he said, because the studio was in bad shape, but he had said this thing that when he saw the rushes, he was going to fight the studio the investors to leave this guy alone. Because he was a little late, he was doing things differently, but when he saw it, he knew he had something, and it turned out he did, and it did the business it did, and that was the thing for me. Was when I read it, I knew we had something. Matt knew already. Matt was like, "Yeah, this is going to be great," but I'm a little more dubious. But as I was going, and I had more and more pages building up, and I remember reaching, I don't know, 20 or 30 pages in, and I just felt, man, this is good. This is good. I'm not talking my personal, what I think about my own stuff. I mean, just the marriage of story and art, that something different was happening. It was compelling.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And I know do you draw in sequential order?
Yep.
Okay. Do you ever go back and after you've drawn like some scene, like for example, where he figures out, where he reveals to his classmate that, oh, I already know how to change into an animal, and he changes into this big ass bat.
Yeah.
Do you ever go back and be like, you know what, that creature that I made before, like 10 pages before, that wasn't scary enough. I need to go back and make that one even scarier.
I think what happens with me is that I have the idea in my head, and it's more not like, do I make it scarier? That I don't have. What I do is, did I get what was in my head on paper?
Right.
And I could see these things very clearly. And if I haven't met that, then I do, but I haven't really come across that. That's the stuff that's the easiest for me. The hard stuff to do is making sure you build the tension before it, that you have enough panels that are interesting, not just headshots. If it's going to be a headshot, a lot of lighting, an interesting angle, something that reflects what the mood of not what they're saying, but the atmosphere, the mood of what they're saying, the intent. So that I'll spend more time on. But the monsters, they're a breeze.
Well, this is what I would call a page turner, because as you read one page, you're like, what is going to happen next? I can't wait to see what
well, that's Matt Wagner, isn't it? I mean, Matt Wagner writes great scenes.
He does write great scenes.
He writes absolutely compelling stuff. So when you're doing it, you're going, well, how does this pay off, or where does this lead, or what's going to happen now that he's done this, or I did not see that coming. Well, you build up enough of those and you arc the character, it makes a great book. And the fact that he does it for this, and then he does it again in the next one, but then as you pull back further, all these things start, the arc, and then there's a larger arc, and it's what makes an epic. Not that it's a big story or a long story, I should say, but it's a story that over time you see what the ramifications and what the implications are at the beginning, and how, no lost threads here with him.
Right.
If there's something, it comes back around.
Awesome.
It's just he does so many, you don't know what they're going to be until they're done. You just don't know what it is until it's done. Then you go, oh, it all makes sense.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. We want to be respectful of your time, Kelley. And, oh
my goodness, it's been 2 hours. You're right. 2 hours.
Yeah,
that flew by, guys.
Well, I mean, we're talking about stuff we all love, right?
That is true.
Yeah.
That's true. Well, this is back of the comic book shop stuff. So yes.
Yeah. You were mentioning that you've been doing a lot of press for this.
Yeah, I have to in just a little bit. I forgot.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. Well, we gotta let you go. But what I was gonna ask, what has been the question, or what has been the thing that you feel as people have been asking the most about this book?
I think if there's something I hear the most is how Matt and I came to do this, why we came to do it this way through a Kickstarter. And that one it's a good question, because initially the idea of having a publisher involved obviously would solve a lot of logistical problems. I mean, Matt and I are having to do a lot of those things on our own. But when we were dealing with that, I started to get concerned that I was going to get confined again, or the impaling stuff, or like I said, all the sex and violence stuff, which to me really was within the needs of the story. And it would damage that impact of the story I'd read. So the more we did this, I said, well, I don't really want to work with this publisher or that one. If it were up to me, we'd do it this way. And Matt would go, oh, but it's all this work and we don't know what we're doing yet. And I remember we ran into a snag dealing with one, and I said, I just said, Matt, are you there yet? And he says, yeah, I'm there. Yeah, we'll look into this and we'll do it that way. And he says, are you willing to commit to that? Because that's a lot of work. And I said, yeah, but it's that good. I knew it was good. So you want, anytime in your career, you want people to say the stuff you just did was as good as anything you did prior. And I think this does that. I think I would hold this up against anything else I've drawn. And that again comes from story. It's that good of a story. So it's the fuel and the energy is right there.
100% agree. It's peanut butter and jelly. It's peanut butter and chocolate, whatever you want to call it.
If you can find that, it's hard to find. We're not basing this on shtick. Everyone knows Dracula. What more can you do with Dracula? The best thing I hear is people say, God, this is like Dracula, but Dracula, we're not inventing things. This is all stuff that's there. And so it isn't a shtick. It isn't, we did a uniform change, or we didn't change something that, we didn't kill something, we didn't do the shtick. It's just hardcore, solid quality comic books. And it's comic books with a capital C, it's pure comic books. I have been very fortunate to have a lot of people dig this who I respect, simply because they've seen it all too. And they're going, I've had a few of them say, oh, Dracula, why would you and Matt waste your time? Do something. And then they read it and go, this is awesome. And I go, it's why I trusted him,
Well, there's that Neil Gaiman quote at the end of, right at the very end of the book. Matt Wagner, Kelley Jones, and Dracula are a match made in hell, and we are lucky to be on this earth at this time to see them come together.
Well, it's because everyone knows this story. Everyone who does this knows Stoker. You either know the book, or you know the movies, or you know both, or whatever. You know it. So to see something new like this, and then have Matt pull the neat trick of, he really doesn't do the Fang stuff until the very end. And you didn't miss anything. And then it makes you that much more excited to see him as a full-blown vampire.
Right.
And that's delivers.
And we do need to point out, you only have until Friday, November 1st.
Yep. And then we are done on that day. We are done on that day.
Next Friday. Well, depending upon when you're listening to this, Friday.
And I want to point out, because I don't really like Kickstarters. I've been burned in the past in projects.
You and I both.
And I would only do this if I fully trusted you.
Right.
And I fully trusted you on this. And boy, howdy, I'm so glad I did. But one thing I want to point out, if you're thinking about, jumping on for book 2, I love the transparency of the progress along the way.
Yep. You tell everyone where you're at. It's like I said earlier, I'm over halfway done. The book is over halfway done. Penciled, colored, inked, lettered, the whole thing. So I'll make the times it will to make the publication dates. You have to, because I'm the same way. I want these things out myself. I don't like waiting forever. And so you treat it like a job. I don't take anything. This is what I do. This is the character in the book and the guy I'm working with, and that's it. And there'll be no sob stories unless I'm hit by a bus. There won't be any stories. And even then I'll try to do something.
Yeah.
But that's because I believe through production, good things happen. If I stop and don't work on it for a long time, I'll lose my edge. I'll lose the energy, the organic zeitgeist that happens with it. So I just keep working and good things happen.
Awesome.
That's the virtue of having done Batman as a monthly book for 3 years. That you couldn't miss. So it taught me how to not miss.
It's a great point. Kelley Jones does not miss.
No, don't miss.
That is absolutely true. If you missed out on the Kickstarter for Volume 1, Book 1, you can grab it. It's in stores now through Dark Horse. Pledge Book 2. Grab a beautiful copy of that. Kelley Jones, Mr. Kelley Jones, our 7th annual Spooktacular.
It was a success. I enjoyed every minute of it.
We honestly can't thank you enough for your time. It's every year it's better than the next.
Next year we'll do it again next year, guys.
Awesome.
Look forward to it.
Happy Halloween, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.